Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I think this is our special Thanksgiving coffee and conversation. And because of that, we got to thinking about our view on planning and a great time to think about planning with an abundant mindset, which is what we wanted to talk about today. An abundant mindset was coined by Stephen Covey in his book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, back in 1989. He taught Americans that in order to change your life, you need to change your mindset. For Covey, an abundant mindset is when you believe there are enough resources and you have enough success to share with others. That's really consistent with Argent Bridge and our focus and our values. That's opposed to a scarcity mindset, which in essence states that the pie is only so big and there's only so many resources to go. So while fear or scarcity is often what motivates people to start their planning or to come see us or take action, we think an abundant planning approach to financial planning is what supports building something sustainable. A scarcity mindset looks like, as it relates to planning, that you're focusing on a lack of resources, what you don't have, usually time or money or both. So our view and our abundant planning, why we think that's important to you, is because our focus first is on what you've already accomplished. That's the first step in thinking abundantly when it comes to your accomplishments. And next, largely, it's the planning and around abundance of your time horizon and your resources. So we thought Eric would share some thoughts around abundance as it relates to time. And then Cecile is going to share some thoughts on planning with a focus on resources. So Eric, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, of course. As Diane said, I'll start with the abundance of time, and I'll start with what everyone I'm sure has heard before about why to start early. Using the time on your side, starting early to invest, and just doing what you can. There's a famous example called the penny example, and a very original name. But basically, if you had 1 penny on day 1 and it doubled every day for 30 days, how much would you have for the end? So at day 1, you have a penny. Day 2, you have 2 cents. Day 3, you have 4 cents. What would it be after 30 days? And I think that number surprises people. Cecile, do you have a guess?
I remember doing this exercise at school where you had to fold a sheet so many times and then the number was crazy, but I would say, 500,000.
It's actually 5,000,000.
Oh, I was far.
$8,709.12.
Incredible.
That's crazy.
It seems like you're far off, but you are actually very close to day 27. On day 27 out of 30, you had
wow.
71,000. Obviously, when you invest, your money's not going to double every day. That's not realistic, but that just shows like compounding upon itself.
Super powerful.
That's the power. So obviously starting earlier, even if it's not doubling, having that money grow for longer is what makes time so valuable. One more example I'll use is if you have a 40-year career. You start at age 25, you're contributing every year. Let's just say you contribute 10,000 a year, whatever the number is, you're contributing each year. If you're consistent, you'll have 3 times more at least when you get to retirement. So in my example, 10,000 a year, you'd have over 1.2 million at retirement. It's a lot easier to do over time. It doesn't sound as frightening or intimidating when you have 40 years to save 10,000 a year compared to saving 1.2 million all at once.
Right.
So that's a way to use time to your advantage. And it won't always be easy. So everyone has higher expense years where it's tougher to save when they're raising kids, or they'll have lower income years when they're building up to their potential in their job or the higher levels. It's not always easy, and it's not a linear path. Everybody has their own path. It's just a matter of knowing you have time, saving what you can when you can, and you're gonna like the end result if you follow that strategy. I know it sounds basic. And you'll have more years to do it. So I know everybody's heard everyone's living longer. I looked up some stats, of course, just to see
course.
what's saying right now. More than 3 out of 5 of those that turn 65 will reach age 80. It was 41% 50 years ago. So people are living significantly longer, and women specifically, 1 in 3 will reach age 90. So people are living longer, they have more time. And that means they'll have more options. They'll have longer to save. They'll have the option to work longer, work part-time, shift careers. There's time to make these decisions. And I think more people are starting to realize that.
I was thinking too, that would mean a longer number of years to plan for, right? So
Mhm.
possibly, we talk about it all the time, possibly 2 people retired for more than 30 years.
Mhm.
Exactly. And the younger generations are taking that to heart. I think it's 52% of millennials plan to retire by 65. So more people want to retire early, and by saving sooner, using the time to your advantage, they're able to. And retirement might not mean stop working. For some people, that may mean change careers. It may mean go part-time. It just,
Consult.
it's not an end. It doesn't have to be an end to your working career. There's plenty of things you can do with that time on your side. I know
Great
that
point.
this sounds maybe overly basic too, but if you think everyone says that they don't have time, like only 24 hours in a day, how can I do all the things? And I'm guilty of saying it too. But if you just look at the numbers in a basic way, like 24 hours in a day, you're working 8 hours a day, you're sleeping 8 hours a day, and you have 8 hours to yourself every day.
Why does it feel like less than that?
I know it feels like less than that, but if you account for that, and you account for weekends when most aren't working, most have about 72 hours a week. They could be doing anything.
Wow. But it takes planning, right? Otherwise,
takes
time just
planning.
gets away.
It takes planning, but it's an excellent opportunity to build on your skills, have your experiences, passions. There's a lot of options. But my point is that time will be there, whether you decide you want to make a change today or later or what you want to do. The time doesn't change, and it's abundant in nature, which
I think that's exactly the point. That perfect point made on the abundance of time. A great perspective.
Mhm.
What about abundance of resources, Cecile?
Sure. So I think that, you think traditionally of hiring an advisor and, having them manage your portfolio. A lot of people think, oh, what can be my rate of return? How can I grow this money as much as possible? And I'm not making a line of it. I think it's still important, but our goal is to grow people's resources, but within context, meaning, well, what is the meaning of wealth? What are we shooting for here? So we always start with thinking about, the true meaning of wealth, in my opinion, is having enough to do the things that are important to you, not just dying with as much money as possible. Like, what's the point of taking that money to your grave? So, when we think of thinking abundantly about wealth and what it means and the things that you can do with it, then it makes it easier to think about not just focusing on just your spending, but thinking beyond that. How can I be generous and give to charity if that's important to me, or give to my children? So we try to build a sustainable plan to ensure that there's enough resources, not only for our clients to spend on day-to-day things and raising their children and so on and so forth, but also the charitable aspect of it. So that's a question we get all the time. Am I going to have enough to give to charity, or how much can I give to charity? And in our mind, it doesn't have to be an or, where you either can splurge on yourself or give to charity. It can be both, as long as you really focus on what's important to you and thoughtfully plan around that. And I think the theme here is plan.
Great.
Also. So another thing, when we think about abundance of resources, we always start with planning for, cash flow planning and things like that. And when people come to us, they're always like, oh, I'm spending too much, or I could really be cutting on this and that. And while that's true, it's kind of a two-sided equation. Basically what you have left at the end of the month is what you earn minus what you spend. So of course, if you cut your spending, you're going to have much more left over, but it doesn't have to be that way. What about the plus side of the equation? We always encourage people to think abundantly about how can they improve their career? How can they earn more? Yeah. So to me, that's very exciting, about thinking about possibilities, not just, oh, how can I nickel and dime myself and not buy that $5 Starbucks coffee that I really want to buy. I'm laughing because Diane and I are pretty big on caffeine and fancy coffees. So the plus side of the equation is important. So earning is one, but sometimes it could also mean generating more income from a portfolio. So it doesn't just have to be this one narrow focus either. Income can come in a variety of forms, either more salary, but maybe more income from the portfolio too.
And I think I like where you're going with that. I also think there's ways to save that aren't just you're spending less. Maybe Eric gave an example today about the cost of borrowing. Could that you've spent less because interest rates are lower, right, Eric?
Right. I think most look at the low rates that we're at today as negative because they see their bank account statements and they've earned pennies, and that is discouraging, not gonna lie. But there's a positive side to that equation where you can afford much more house with a mortgage. You can borrow money to do other things at a very cheap cost. So it helps you not be snowballed by debt or be limited by options that debt can provide. So yeah, I think that's definitely a good point. That's the seal.
I feel like that's an abundant view on where interest rates are. And that's a classic example of how we're trying to adopt that mindset when we're planning.
And to your point, a mortgage is mostly a fixed cost. When thinking back of the plus side of the equation, maybe your income is likely only going to go up. So it's a great opportunity here.
Great point. I think if you wonder why is it important for us to have our clients think abundantly, I would just share that in our experience, when our clients are thinking with an abundant mindset, what it leads to is peace of mind. And even to some degree, empowerment to maybe try something new or retire early and try something that you've been looking forward to, or live in an area where you've been curious about, but also more fulfillment and more meaning. And finally, consistent with our core values is success. Creating success is something that's really important to everyone at Argent Bridge Advisors. And I think thinking abundantly as it relates to your planning will ultimately lead to financial success. So with that, we hope you think abundantly over the Thanksgiving holiday, including abundant carbs, but likely maybe more on our abundant thinking around finance. I hope you found this helpful.
I'm grateful for everyone that joined and for the extra carbs.
Thanks, everybody. We certainly
Thank you.
That's right.